Give me a countdown. What is up? Happy New Year, and we have made it into 2023. You are listening to the Area Attack Podcast, your home of the unscripted, unfiltered, 100% authentic, proud partners of the Belly Up Sports Media Network. And definitely check them out. Check all the wonderful podcasts out on that network as well. And don't forget, you can check out manscaped.com. Use the code BELLYUPFANTASY for 20% off your order. But first things first, hope you all had a wonderful holiday season, Christmas, and of course, New Year's as we head into 2023. Without further ado, enough about me. Let's get to our wonderful guest from the my phone. Hold on, guys. From the Jo Patt on the Bets podcast, his very own Jo Patt. Jo, welcome to the Area Attack Podcast. Glad to have you on. And first things first, Happy New Year.
You too, man. What a great introduction that was. Hard to top that.
Of course, I had it right here. Of course, then my phone goes blank, even though I should have just had Twitter right there on my laptop because I'm looking at it. But it is what it is. But first things first, where can all the listeners kind of tell us a little about yourself, and where can they listen to your awesome? Which I applaud you. It's great stuff, by the way.
I appreciate it.
Where can they listen to your podcast at?
Yeah, you can find us Jo Patt on the Bets, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, pretty much anywhere you find podcasts, except for YouTube. That's coming this coming football season. Gotta get a camera and get all that set up. But yeah, we occasionally do some what are those called? Twitter Spaces, and post those on Twitter.
Yeah, those can get interesting.
Yeah, those get kind of fun. You never know who's going to pop in and say something. You just never know. Sometimes we'll being so close to the University of Tennessee, like this past season, we popped up to Gus's Good Times Deli and handed out stickers. Met with some people.
Nice.
It was a good time. So yeah, you can find us pretty much anywhere you find podcasts except for YouTube.
Hey, and don't worry, I'm sure that they'll have great content when that time comes on YouTube. And hey, I don't know about you, Jo, but first things first. What about this wonderful weekend we had of college football? Of course, the first semifinal, Michigan and TCU in the Fiesta Bowl, followed up with, in my opinion, I don't know how you could top the first one, but we did. Followed up with Ohio State and Georgia going first to the first semifinal, TCU, Michigan. I'm not going to lie. I really thought Michigan was going to come out here. I didn't think TCU was that good. I like Max Duggan, and I like Sonny Dykes as head coach. But looking at the Big 12 as a whole, and it really showed this year, well, for the exception of TCU, it really showed this year in the bowl games, even, and we'll kind of get to that, touch that up as well throughout the show, is the Big 12 just wasn't, in my opinion, wasn't that great of a league this year. Texas, inconsistent up and down. Oklahoma was a train wreck. Oklahoma State, in my opinion, seemed to be like OSU in the past. No knock on them as our little brother, but OU wasn't great, so I'm not going to say that we're God's best team either. But so you have Baylor, defending Big 12 champs. They were a little more disappointing. Kansas really did well, but I mean, I don't know, the league might have been poorly. Anyway, long story short, I was surprised TCU hung and obviously defeated Michigan. Michigan is going to be probably like Oklahoma. I don't know if they're going to win a playoff game if they ever get back to it. But what's your thoughts on this first one? And I really thought, Jo, that Michigan would come back and somebody tweeted 52-51. I'm thinking, oh, Lord, please don't do this now. But they had their opportunity, but TCU came out slugging and they ran away with it, headed to their first ever national title appearance.
Yeah, I was really impressed with TCU's ability to stop the run early out of the 3-3-5 defense. That just shouldn't happen with the run game Michigan has. But I was really impressed with Duggan's pocket composure. I mean, there's some plays where he's taking his time in the pocket, moving his feet, creating space in the pocket to deliver a throw downfield. and that was really impressive to me. Uh, that's going to come in handy. We saw C.J. Stroud doing that all night long,
Mm-hmm.
evading pressure inside the pocket without taking off, maintaining the pocket, just moving within it, and creating time to throw downfield. So that's going to create issues in the national championship game. But
Yep.
for as far as the TCU Michigan game, I'm right there with you. I looked at the score and it was 21-3, and I was like, well,
Mm-hmm.
if uh if it was Michigan 21, I would have not been surprised at all. But TCU 21-3 really just kind of took me back. I had to sit back and I didn't know what was going on.
Well, I'm right there with you, and and I'm not one of those guys or fans, and I don't know if it happens. Maybe it does happen in other conferences. I'm not your typical Big 12 conference fan. Like my dad would always say, well, you got to root for the conference. No, I'm not going to do that. I'm happy for. I really don't have anything against TCU. I'm happy for them that they got this far. I just really didn't expect TCU to do what they did. And if you look at Max Duggan's numbers, they weren't, passing wise, they weren't really impressive. It's not like he just like a Caleb Williams day to day. He just went off on numbers. 14 of 29, 225, two touchdowns, two interceptions, a sack. It wasn't obviously, oh my God, he just lit up the scoreboard. But like you said, he stayed in the pocket. He was patient with what he got and dealt with, and he did what he did on the ground. And hey, at the end of the day, it's what matters is a W. And it's interesting now. You look at Sonny Dykes, and kind of help tease along the way is we'll talk first year head coaches Brent Venables and Sonny Dykes to name at least two of them at least. Who's going to have a better year next year? I don't know if Sonny Dykes he can't get any worse than what he did this year, or any better, I should say. Um, TCU really just I don't want to say exposed. I don't think that's the right word. TCU I think just overall top to bottom really showed out and showed that this team, in my, they proved me wrong that this team can match up with the big boys.
Yeah, they played extremely well against Michigan. It benefited them to be up 21-3 early. If
Oh,
uh
absolutely.
if it was 21-17 and Michigan goes on some of those runs they went on, it's a different game. But I'm I'm really I really come away kind of impressed with what Michigan was able to do in this game. Uh, to your point earlier about not knowing if they'd be able to win a playoff game, uh, they were they were taken out of their game plan very early in this game, and were able to recuperate, recover, and throw the ball to potentially win the game, and brought themselves all the way back. Now McCarthy, if he doesn't throw two pick sixes, it's another ball game too.
Hmm.
So it gives you some false confidence in TCU. They earned it, but it's just a little bit of false confidence in the fact that McCarthy had two major mistakes, and they got completely out of their game plan early and were able to just match Michigan the rest of the way.
Well, and that was a great point that you brought up because that kind of, was leading towards a wrap up of this one is, if it wasn't for the pick sixes of TCU's that McCarthy threw, literally to TCU, if TCU had those two pick sixes, even if you look, let's say play devil's advocate and say, well, one of the two got ran back, you got yourself a ball game, and I'm not for sure if Michigan don't come out on top and win this thing. Um, but McCarthy played well. I know that a lot of people took pictures. I guess there was one photo that was going around Twitter, him watching the celebration of TCU, and some people I don't know why he's like. I really don't mind it. It's cool. I mean, if he wants to enjoy the moment, gives him more of a motivation for next year, power to him. Now, whether or not Coach Harbaugh will be the head coach next year, who knows? But credit to TCU. I know that's a Big 12 team, but credit because I'm not going to lie. I had Michigan winning, and I'm going to be honest. I had them winning quite a bit.
Yeah, them winning by 21 would not have surprised me one bit, and that's exactly how I expected the game to go, and it did not go anywhere close to that way. But that's why they don't play the game on paper. But
Yeah, you don't want me to control the game on paper because a lot of these teams, a lot of the teams are going to be losing. The second one, I didn't think we could top the first one, but we sure enough did. The second one was also a classic as well. Ohio State, Georgia. Defending national champs. Ohio State, Coach Day. Can he? They're coming off, I know, a few weeks wet rest, coming off of the Michigan loss, and some people didn't think Ohio State should be in there. It should have been Alabama, whatever the case may be. Who cares? Um, I don't even know where to start at. CJ Stroud played well. I really don't want to. I don't know where to go because this game was just too good. CJ Stroud played pretty well. I know he took some hits, but 23 or 34, 348, 4 touchdowns, and I believe 4 or 5 sacks. It was a dogfight. I mean, you can't really knock Ohio State. You can't really knock Georgia. Georgia came back down. What was it, 14-15 late in the
Yeah, they
third or fourth?
came back down 14 on two different occasions in this game, including in the fourth to win the game. Just unreal.
Yeah, I don't. It was a wonderful. It was an awesome game. I don't even know where to begin. Bennett played well. The interesting poor kicker. The interesting part was really the kick.
Yeah, right there at the stroke of midnight. I mean, right on time with it.
Who was? I think ESPN shared that literally. I guess just literally to show it was legit. That once it clocked down to zero, turn of the calendar of the turn of the year, I should say. Of course, that's when the missed field goal took place. But I don't know what I'm gonna pick your head on this one, really, because I'm still trying to grasp this whole game. It reminds me so much of Oklahoma Georgia back in the Rose Bowl
Mm.
in I think 18 or 17. Um,
Yeah, Georgia had to come back down big in that game too.
mm-hmm. Only
Had
Lincoln
special
Riley,
teams,
man.
blocked field goal and
That block.
double overtime.
Only if Lincoln Riley didn't screw up a kick right before
Yeah,
half.
if only he
Anyway,
could teach people how to tackle Nick Chubb, but or Sony Michelle for that matter.
Lincoln Riley, and we'll talk about that here in a second. Lincoln Riley, his biggest thing is he has no defense. Great offense, but you got to have
Yeah,
defense if you're ever going to try to win anything. But no, Georgia obviously showed why they're the national champions. They literally fought to the very end. As you mentioned, they were down 14 twice in the game, came back. Um, Bennett played off his charts. Yeah, I'm looking at the running game was pretty balanced. I know it wasn't, McIntosh, I think, ran for 70 plus yards. I know Bennett didn't run very well, but,
ran a
Siege,
touchdown.
he ran for the touchdown exactly. And it was all around a great game. Ohio State, we expect CJ Stroud to go declare. I'm sure Marvin Harrison Jr. is another one who had a phenomenal game
Yeah.
up until he got hurt. But your thoughts on this, final stuff? I ain't gonna lie, I thought Ohio State was gonna lose bad, but um, your thoughts on this one, and we'll preview the national title game.
Well, Ohio State's or offense is electric and terrifying when they're hot, and they were hot
Hmm.
the whole game, and they haven't been hot for an entire game all season. All season they've burned through hot streaks, followed by insanely cold streaks, followed by a hot streak to win a game, and they just stayed hot the whole game. In this game, they ran into a couple punts, but I think they punted 4 times the whole game. That's going against a top defense. That's pretty damn good.
Yep.
Uh, Marvin Harrison. When you have Marvin Harrison, Julian Fleming, Emeka Ibuka, their tight end whose name is slipping my mind. When you have that many guys on the field, you're going to get yours. It doesn't matter who the defense has against you. You're just going to get yours. And credit to Georgia for getting stops when they needed to. Credit to Ohio State for driving down to getting field goal range. But
Yep.
couple more yards might have fared him better because Ruggles has not made one from 50 his entire career. So
Maybe next year he can nail a 50-yarder. That was
maybe,
that was really, yeah, that was not saying that, not knocking him. A
yeah.
lot of pressure, obviously, riding on that one.
I've
But
heard a
yeah,
lot of Georgia got lucky that he missed the field goal, and really, when you look at the numbers, the lucky thing would have been him making it from 50. But that's just by the numbers.
oh man. Well, now I know why you can't make it from 50. It goes far left and not even
Yeah,
close.
yeah.
Um,
Oof.
we, yeah, I poor kid. I hope he's okay. But TCU Georgia, I can guarantee you nobody would have predicted this as our national championship game. Uh, TCU coming out of the Big 12, of course, Georgia defending national champions out of the SEC. Your thoughts on this one? I want to pick your brain on this one, especially when it comes to bets. I know I'm kind of according to DraftKings is where we're at right now. It's opened at 13. TCU's plus 13. Obviously, Georgia's minus 13, favored by 13. Over under 62 and a half. The money line is opened at plus 400 for TCU, and of course opened at minus 500 for Georgia. When it comes to a betting line on this one, what stats do you look at, and where should, if anybody that's listening out there prior to the national title game, what should they consider when it comes to a betting game, especially to this atmosphere where on paper Georgia should steamroll TCU, but you never know. What anyway? Long story short, what should we look at when it comes to bets on this national title game against a really good Georgia team and against a Cinderella TCU team?
Yeah, you never do know, but the line being that fat has to do with the fact that if you just take the last two games in perspective that we saw on Saturday night, you would think that this line probably should be at around 5 or 6 within a score because TCU played way better than everybody thought they should against Michigan,
Right.
and Georgia was taken to the brink against Ohio State. Well, all Vegas is doing is just taking a regression back to the median, going back to where everything should be and not where everything was. So on paper, which is what Vegas is looking at, Georgia is the superior roster. They're way more efficient defensively and offensively. Points per drive wise, Georgia doubles them. I mean, on paper it's not a game, but the games aren't played on paper. Uh, I don't know that TCU has a chance to stop anything that Georgia does. Now, if they can create the offense they created against Michigan's defense, then we got a ball game, and
Hmm.
that over is even at 62 and a half or whatever it was you said. I believe it was 62,
Hmm.
62 and a half.
Yep.
Yeah, that's going to get shot out of the water real quick if we look up in the first quarter and it's 14-14. And then also that 13 and a half is going to get shot too. Or 13. I think Caesars has it at 13 and a half. Uh, Personally, I probably would take TCU to cover just because I know how Kirby Smart likes to call these games,
Right.
especially if he feels he's the superior team, superior roster. I mean, just look at what he did against Tennessee. They built up a 20-point lead and said, this is good enough, and just
Hmm.
ran the ball until the game was over. Uh, and especially if TCU is going to stick in the 3-3-5 with the tight ends that Georgia has, especially if Darnell can come back. They said it's not a hip sprain. I mean, Darnell Washington is a left tackle playing tight end with speed. I
Yep.
mean, it's just insane. Uh, you get him in a screen game, any kind of extension of the run game, sweeps, anything. He's just a menace to society. Uh, and Brock Bowers is a great blocker himself, as well as some of these receivers. Uh, Not as good as George Pickens was, but uh, Georgia's just a juggernaut on offense and defense. It's something that is not going to stop because 55 of these players on this team are sophomores or younger.
Hmm.
Uh, it's a little scary. Uh, We got Nick Saban 2.0 brewing just a little
Yeah,
bit,
we do. Hmm.
and if he three-peats, then you really got to start talking, especially with the wide receiver commits they got in the transfer portal. But Max Duggan can make this a game by himself. Him and Quentin Johnston can make this a game by themselves. There's not one singular person on this Georgia defense that can cover Quentin Johnston for 4 quarters consistently. He's just that good. And if Duggan can evade pressure, move around in the pocket, create plays, then this will be a ball game.
Well, I think that's going to be the key for TCU. I think Max Duggan's going to have to. I think Max Duggan's going to have to just if he can stay in the pocket and get, if O line can help with the pressure, give him some time, like against Michigan. I think Max can do well. Georgia, if they start out and they're quick on they're quick on the line. Don't get me wrong. If Georgia gets to him early, I'm afraid maybe I don't want to put in perspective that this could be a Alabama Cincinnati from last year. I don't want to put it in that realm, but TCU, I get a sense, and I should one thing I should point up is Chandler Morris. If he didn't get hurt, who knows what this TCU team would have done, but it reminds me so much of Tom Brady. Drew Bledsoe goes out, here comes Tom Brady, and the rest of course, is history. But if Max Duggan if he can stay in the pocket, do what he did against Michigan, I think TCU's fine. My concern would be if they get to him quick and often, how well is he going to adjust, and can he get the ball out in time to get them down the field? I'm actually looking forward to this one just simply because we all expected Georgia to be there. They won a national title for the first time since what was it, 1980. Last year, I expect them. We all expect them to be back this year. TCU is just a wonderful story. First year head coach Sonny Dykes took over what one was a very good Gary Patterson team for a long time. Even though I think Patterson overstayed to stay, but it's going to be interesting. Sorry, that was my daughter.
Oh, you're good.
I figured I don't want the listeners out there to hear her saying I want candy. Um, so yeah, she'll be 5 in a few months. Uh, but but anyway, no, I'm actually looking forward to this one. Um, Quentin Johnston's a good player, but George is loaded.
They
I
are.
just man, but TCU surprised me. I'm obviously You know, they did well in the Big 12, coming up short against Kansas State, though. But Kansas State is a
Kansas
good
State was
team.
on a revenge tour after they lost that game.
Yeah, they
I mean,
were.
after they lost that game, every game they played after that, they were on a different level,
Yep.
and they were on a mission. Uh, their backup quarterback was it Will Howard.
Hmm.
No, was Will Howard the starter, or did he come in as the backup?
He came in as a backup.
Okay, yeah, he
Yeah.
wasn't quite ready yet that first time around, but after that, he did nothing but light the world on fire. So uh, I was excited to watch Kansas State. I was hoping they'd fare a little bit better against Alabama, but you get Bryce Young and Will Anderson back. That doesn't just help you on the field; that helps you with every other player on the field, seeing their leaders. Uh, it was going to be tough for Kansas State to pull that off.
Yeah, I didn't think they would win. And even though they were up, what was it, 10-0? I'm like, well, I knew Bama didn't have many opt outs, and most of them played the entire game. I'm like, well, maybe Kansas State was actually legit, but Bama did Bama things.
Yeah, last time Bama played in a regular bowl game, I'm pretty sure they got boat raced by Oklahoma, but I
Yeah.
could be wrong.
That would, because
Or
that
maybe
was
maybe they played Michigan in their last
13.
bowl game. I don't know.
Well, I
It's bad that you
know.
can't remember bowl games for a team. It's not like they happen every year. So tells you something when they ain't been in one that long.
Speaking of bowl games, um, I tried to watch as many as possible. I tried. I failed. Is bowl games a really good thing for the game? Simply because, of course, if you're like Central Michigan going to Bahamas, who wouldn't? Because I mean, 0 degree
Yeah,
weather compared to 70s, I would. Um, but when you top and bottom, you get a lot of opt outs, and a lot of players don't play because they're probably going to declare, but they don't want to risk injury and so on and so forth. Is there too many I think it was what 42 now, 43 bowl games as it is. Is there too many bowl games, and that's why a lot of people get a different feel? Or what's your take on it? My take, I just think is a lot of bowl games, in my opinion.
it
However,
is. It is a lot of bowl games.
I don't want to say just totally stop them, but
I mean, I had some ideas. Now, one, the first idea that doesn't change anything hardly is if you put you put $1, just one
mm-hmm,
dollar on any game, you immediately care about it. Uh, Even
true
if it's
that.
just $1, you put $1 on something crazy to happen, and by the third quarter, everything but one thing's happened. You're on the edge of your seat for Central Illinois versus Arkansas State, Pine Bluff, and you didn't know it was even possible. Uh, but in all seriousness, to to make bowl games better, you could change the minimum threshold to 6 wins, or from 6 wins, take it up to 8 or 9.
Mm-hmm.
Then we're only getting B tier teams, anyways. Minimum. We're not getting any Northern Illinois or somebody who just barely skated to 6 wins in their conference and get to go play Arkansas and get beat by 50. Now, granted, Arkansas kind of struggled with Kansas in the second half, but that's irrelevant. uh, but yeah, if they raise the minimum threshold on wins to get into a bowl game, I think it could do things. But I think for all the players who aren't, already tuned out, transferring, going to the NFL, for everybody else, I mean, they're obviously there to play. Uh, Most of them, if they've got the right heart and attitude towards the game, want to be there. It's another game. They've got pride. They want to win. Uh, if their coach is halfway worth his weight in salt, then
Mm-hmm.
they're gonna strap it up and play for the logo on their uniform anyways. Uh, but I like bowl games. You get to see some matchups that you wouldn't normally see until the future when we have just true conferenceless football, because that's where we're headed.
Oh,
But
absolutely.
we're headed to a world where Toledo and Georgia aren't even playing the same sport. But
Glad you brought that up. I know you mentioned Knoxville. Are you a Vols fan?
I'm glad to say that I am not. You can keep the Voltards away from me. My co-host is a Tennessee fan and a recent Kansas State fan. Just because they have chocolate milk in the press conference, but that tells you what my co-host is. But
I love that. The reason why I asked that, so if you don't mind me asking, who is your team if you have one?
well, I am a Georgia fan.
Very
I
nice.
try to I try to keep that on the DO because then nobody believes a word I say about Georgia. But I do try to be unbiased and speak to nothing but truth. I mean, I'm the first one to tell you that Keely Ringo is not a corner. Uh, he's got no business playing corner. He's a safety playing corner. But I'm the first one that's going to point out all their faults. I can promise you that.
Hmm. Well, and I think that, I respect that because, like for me, for example, I'm an OU fan. I got an OU helmet right next to me. I mean,
I'm sorry.
and so,
That was for the bowl game, the playoffs. That was not because you're an Oklahoma fan.
and so, like shout out to Coach I and the Fan Addict Sports podcast. So he did a preview show, and we met via Twitter, like everybody else does nowadays. And so, long story short, he's like, dude, we did a preview show, and I had, I think, Oklahoma 8-4, 7-5. somewhere in that realm. I think it was 8-4, somewhere in that realm. And he said, "Dude, that was like the biggest, one of the biggest, listening thing because you really piss off a lot of OU fans." Well, I mean, I don't know what you guys thought. I called it out that I knew we were overrated to begin with. And no offense, Nebraska, they just suck. That's why we did what we did and didn't win a game for almost 2 months after that. So, um, I respect. I think true fans that keep it real. I think you got to, and nothing wrong with we're gonna win, even though deep inside you're not. You're not going to.
That was my co-host all week leading up to the Georgia Tennessee game. He was unbearable, unbearable, as you know Tennessee fans are.
Oh yeah.
Oklahoma's had their fair share of run-ins with Tennessee in the recent years.
Mm-hmm.
They're relentless on Twitter. I mean, relentless.
Yeah, OU fans. I'm sorry for a lot of the listeners out there that have to deal with them on a daily basis because we're really not like that. We just have some morons out there that just, for the life
Can't
of me, they
can't
just
see what's in
can't.
front of their face.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, I know the feeling.
Yeah, with the very first day they announced OU's going, and I'll get your thought on this one in a second. The very first day, OU's going against, we're gonna win. Okay, well, first off, at the time of Lincoln Riley, so with what defense are we going to win? I mean, can somebody explain that one to me first? I mean, we can't. Last year we should have lost to Tulane, we should have lost to Kansas, we should have lost to Nebraska. I mean, the list goes on and on and on and on.
Well, let's be real here. What kind of defense has Alabama had since Kirby left Alabama for
Mm-hmm.
Georgia? Outside of the 2 years immediately following Kirby leaving,
Absolutely.
uh, they've got really good dudes. They got all kinds of Jimmies and Joes, but the X's and O's ain't cutting it.
Nope.
Uh, they, I don't know. It's not a talent problem, that's for sure.
Oh, absolutely not. No.
They
No,
get the cream of the crop.
literally. Yeah, Pete Golding, I really like him. I don't know. I think Nick needs to kind of reevaluate that one, especially on the defensive side, and figure out, if it's not him. I mean, he's a D coordinator, so that a lot falls on him, but he's got to figure that out because that defense hasn't been, you know, tough since like you mentioned, Kirby's been there. So, but SEC, of course, keep it SEC real quick. I know it wasn't on the list, but I'll kind of pick your brain from a non-biased standpoint. I'm excited. I mean, obviously, right now, this what we now are officially a 6-7 team. First losing record since our first losing record to end the year. First losing season. That's what I'm looking for. First losing season since 1998 for OU, finishing 6-7. That was so ridiculous. Anyway, Oklahoma has a lot to work on before they even remotely consider, even though thinking the SEC, we for sure know one more year of the Big 12. We don't know about 24. What's your thoughts on Oklahoma and unfortunately our stepbrothers down in Austin joining the SEC and hopefully being the last two that join because these massive conferences are just getting outrageous?
Well, you say hopefully, but I personally kind of want to add Clemson and Miami, but that's just me. Uh,
See, I thought they should have added Clemson and not Missouri when this whole thing was
yeah,
going about.
Clemson wasn't leaving the ACC then, though. They had just
Mm-mm.
locked in that ACC media rights deal. Uh, but see, Texas, Sark's got the benefit of being there a year before Venables. Uh, or is it 2 years? I'm pretty sure it's just 1 year before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right.
But
Yep.
he's got the benefit of being there a year early, knowing the news a year early. Hey, we're going to the SEC. So he's already been able to overhaul his team and begin the transition process. Venables is just now starting that because Lincoln Riley sure as shit didn't do anything to help that process when he left. He
Yep.
grabbed all the Cadillacs and the Mercedes and he hightailed it to
To LA.
Southern California,
Yep.
uh, and left Oklahoma kind of, I mean, really with a B or C tier roster left over. Just the fact that they were able to win 6 games this year is really, really says something. Um, you wanted the defense to look better just because it's Venables, but that kind of thing, one, is not going to happen in the Big 12.
Mm-mm.
Uh, this is just not. the way offenses are run there, you're not going to have great defense in the Big 12. But what you want to see and what you are seeing is in the recruiting world and the transfer world, he's bringing in big guys on the line of scrimmages, and he's getting. Now, granted, he lost a wide receiver to Georgia. That I'm sorry again,
I
but
kind of expected that one. I didn't think, I know we had a lot that flopped. He was one that I think even when he committed, a lot of people were still saying kind of keep an eye on that one. But that was a tough one to lose, though.
yeah. But the line of scrimmages is where they really need to bulk
Hmm.
up, buff up, get get better because Venables knows what it takes to win in the SEC. He's never been in the SEC, but he had what 4 or 5 clashes
Oh,
in a
with
row with
Alabama.
Alabama.
Yep.
Uh, and Clemson might as well have been an SEC team when they were running through that time. Now,
Oh,
granted,
absolutely.
there was still a couple years they just looked pitiful in the regular season sometimes, but Georgia's looked pretty pitiful in the regular season at times too. Uh, Stetson's been just kind of bored, I think, this year if it's not a big game. Uh, but either way, back to Oklahoma. I do think once Oklahoma gets to the SEC, the transition period will seemingly look a lot better. Uh, he might struggle again next year in the Big 12. Probably make a bowl game. Should make a bowl game. Uh, but by the time they get to the SEC, I think they'll be ready along the line of scrimmage to be able to rotate guys on defense to keep them fresh and be big and physical and be able to control the line of scrimmage.
I think, well, first off, maybe because you might have a lot of inside scoop. What we keep hearing here in Norman, well, I'm not really in Norman. I'm 30 minutes north, which is whatever. Anyway, same metro area. Um, what we hear down here, of course, is OU and Georgia. They want to play because of the transition, this, that, and something else. Georgia was in fact scheduled to be here the second week of September this upcoming season. Of course, suppose I guess it was a mutual agreement. I don't know.
It was a home and home agreement. The reason it was canceled being uh, Georgia would have went to Oklahoma, and then by the time Oklahoma would come to Georgia, it would be a conference game and no longer an out of
Oh,
conference game. So the home and home agreement where there's money exchanged and all kinds of stuff,
right.
it just got nixed. I personally would have loved to see him play it anyways. I would have made the trip myself to Norman to watch that game. Uh,
Oh, I would have
but
been there for that one.
yeah, it would have been a good time. But oh well, we'll see him in conference play sooner rather than later.
Hey, I'm looking forward to it. I mean, we still got at least one more year left for the Big 12, but I did get a question from a good buddy of mine, L. Where is it here? I don't like you, Twitter today. From the LJ show, a good buddy of mine, Lawrence Johnson. He is saying that his question is Sonny Dykes, the head coach of the TCU Horned Frogs, is a better coach than Brent Venables because is his question.
Because is his question.
So pretty much he wants us to I guess answer that Sonny Dykes is a better coach than Brent Venables because and then
So he
give
wants
us
us to assume that we agree with him and then tell them
correct.
why we agree with him. I got you. Okay.
Correct.
Just for the record, I'm not sure that I'm ready to agree with him. Venables has got 1 year as a head coach. As far as the defensive mind, we know what he is. Uh, but for as far as the question goes, uh, Sonny Dykes took over a TCU program that was already running pretty well.
Hmm.
Uh, but to say he didn't get the most out of it would be blasphemy. Uh, got the absolute most out of that squad. Switching over from the fact that I can't tell you his name, tell you something, to Max Duggan at the beginning of the season was the right move.
Oh, Chandler Morris.
Yeah. Uh, Definitely the right move. Max Duggan's been lighting it up all season. Uh, Installed a great plan, and they executed it all year long. I mean, there's not much else to be said. He came out first year and won his conference. Well, I guess he didn't win his conference. won his conference in the regular season,
Hmm.
went undefeated in the regular season, went to the playoffs, won the first game of the playoffs, going to the national championship. No other first year head coach can say that.
And they did before, and TCU did it before Texas could. So no, that's a little joke between Big 12 teams right now. Uh, but but anyway,
Everybody's done a lot of things before Texas could,
yeah.
except pay their
um,
offensive lineman $1 million.
uh,
But that's beside the point.
I still think Arch Manning decommits, but that's just me. Um,
I wish.
yeah, I don't know. He makes do the maybe for a year. I don't see him lasting.
I hope you don't
Um,
go to Ole Miss. Georgia's got them on the schedule this year.
oh, no, I think he'll go somewhere where it's not. He don't get no Eli or Peyton. I really thought he was gonna go to Georgia, but
That's where I thought he
whatever.
was going to. It looked like a heavy for a while.
LJ, Sonny Dykes is a better coach than Brent Venables because that's a tough one. I'm gonna say I'm just gonna be honest. That's a tough one to really answer. Brent Venables got he got a
Shafted.
C roster, if not a D roster. He had no quarterback. Dylan Gabriel showed as to why he was at Central Florida and not at a Power Five conference team. The
I do
running
think
get
Oklahoma fared okay with Gabriel. Uh,
he did
Without
decent.
Gabriel, they were in some deep guano. But
Yeah,
with Gabriel, they were at least a competitive, functioning football team.
Dylan saved the season. We'll just put it that way. Because the backup, who would have been the boot, been General. Well, we could have had General
That's an
Booty.
all-time name right there.
I like that name. I thought somebody was actually playing around. I know we're getting kind of just off topic, but I know I thought somebody's like, yeah, Booty. I'm like, what? And literally, it's like General Booty. I'm like, cool. I hope he starts someday.
Over there in
Um,
Big 12 country area, there's a guy for North Texas named
yep.
Mo Billity. He's a freshman.
Hmm.
MOH Billity. That's his name.
I'll have to keep him. I have to keep an eye on him then.
I mean, anybody with the name Mo Billity's got to be pretty good at something.
You gotta have speed.
You got to do
He's
something.
he's got he's gotta he's gotta have speed or something. Um, I like that. General Booty, 2020. That Jackson Arnold kid though, he can play. Um, General Booty, 2023 season quarterback. Um, no, LJ, real quick. Sonny Dykes had a better roster. Whether or not he can keep this consistently, he wins a national championship. You want to talk about pressure? He's got to contain it at this point. Brent Venables understands what the culture was at OU, and he understands that he got really the raw end of the deal in this roster. So it's going to take him a little bit longer to probably build, and unfortunately, he's about to walk into the SEC. So the rebuilding process might be a little bit longer. I don't know. Hopefully not, but who knows? Um, to say Sonny Dykes is a better coach than Brent's, that's a tough one because I
I
think
mean,
I really think this is a one hit wonder for TCU. That's my personal opinion.
Sonny Dykes walked in the door at TCU preparing and planning full heartedly
Mm-hmm.
for the Big 12. And Brent Venables walked in the door, 1 foot in the Big 12 and 1 foot in the SEC. And with terrible roster.
Well, and exactly,
Just,
and he still had a roster that a lot of people were still on the fence whether they were going to stay or not. The quarterback at the time was
yeah.
on the fence. They then fired Mike Gundy, Mike Gundy, Cal Gundy as OC. That obviously really didn't sit well with a lot of people, but whatever.
And Sonny Dykes took over a Cadillac at TCU.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Gary Patterson, all his faults aside, had that program humming. They may not have been a good team, but they were a good program. Uh, it it was just built to explode with the right guy at the helm. I mean, you take Sonny Dykes and put him at Oklahoma, and take Brent Venables and put him at TCU, and TCU probably wins the national championship because their defense can do something outside of the 3-3-5.
Yep.
Uh, Outside of that, yeah, I mean, Sonny Dykes had a better year.
LJ, let's talk next year at this time, and then I'll give you a better answer. If OU goes 6-7 next year, then we'll definitely talk on that. For now, let's wait for year two, then we'll talk. Lincoln Riley, Um, you know, as of today, during this recording, I know the show will be released on Thursday, but the recording as of today, Tulane upsets the world and beats Southern California. Don't ask me how that happens. 46-45. Lincoln Riley is what now? Of course, you can't go off of what any OU fan says because obviously it's more personal than it is the fact that they lost to Tulane. So eliminate us from the picture, Joe. Eliminate us. Um, is Lincoln Riley a fraud when it comes to college football head coaches? I want to ask you from your standpoint because I'm just going to say one thing. I like him. I don't. I mean, what he did at OU was wrong. I don't condone that, but it is what it is. His big issue, I think I mentioned it earlier, is his defense. He's got to get rid of Alex Grinch. Um, that's his kryptonite. But anyway,
Well, I
um,
think the fact that you mentioned that right there, halfway answers your own question.
mm-hmm,
Every every head coach so far that has been a dynasty builder head coach outside of Dabo because he just kind of had everything fall into his lap.
right.
Um, I mean, Nick Saban, defense, defense, defense. Got to get an explosive offense. Lane Kiffin, bam. Alabama explodes for 7 more years. Kirby Smart, defense, defense, defense. Got to get an offense. Bam. Hired Todd Monken. Offense explodes. Uh, I had one more example. Oh, Ryan Day. All kinds of offense.
Mm-hmm,
Got to get defense. Hired Jim Knowles. Defense came to play this year outside of one game. Uh, Lincoln Riley, he's just gotta find the right guy. That's it. I mean, if Josh Heupel ever finds the right guy, the whole world's in trouble.
oh man.
Uh, I'm just glad Kirby's a head coach, not a defensive coordinator. Because if he was still available as a defensive coordinator, Josh Heupel might be unstoppable at Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but as far as Lincoln Riley goes, I think he's no better, no worse than Ryan Day, Dabo. I mean, Dabo's got his own problems right now. Uh, I think he will eventually get one, especially going to the Big Ten. The defense is going to have to get better, and just by sheer happenstance, it's going to. He'll find a defensive coordinator. Uh, as far as today goes, though, their defense has been poor this year. They've just benefited from a lot of turnovers
Yep.
forced on defense. And if they don't get those, then they're in trouble. I mean, look at Utah. Utah smacked them around.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, you can throw Caleb Williams' injury out there all you want to. Caleb Williams don't play defense. Uh, and they got thrashed. If now also this is Lincoln Riley's first year, bunch of transfers, no recruiting class essentially. So who knows? Who's to say their defense won't be better this year? We
Exactly.
don't know. Uh, for what he did this year, hats off. I mean, I doubted him all season long, and they got there, and I doubted them, and they lost. But uh, I had no faith in them all season just because of their defense. Caleb Williams tried to prove me wrong as much as he could, but I don't think he should have got the Heisman.
No.
Max Duggan should have won the Heisman, even
Yep.
though they lost in their conference championship game. But that's beside the point. Will Anderson should have won it last year. So
Mm-hmm. No. Look, if Lincoln Riley comes in, and I don't know what the schedule looks like for next year, and it's not my importance at the moment, but let's just say, you know, I'm sure the Pac-12 Deion will be make, Deion's going to be interesting at Colorado, but I think Lincoln, if he can get a defensive coordinator, I think he's perfectly fine. His offense, we all know he's going to score points. We all know it's going to be prolific. We all know it's going to be, oh, that's the most weirdest, coolest play on God's green earth because Lincoln Riley created it. We get it. We get it. If we can get a defense, I think USC is probably in the same shoe as Tennessee, and is we could see these two teams be the next Alabama, Clemson's, Georgia's, and so on and so forth, year in and year out. But if he don't get a defense coordinator, and he found that at Oklahoma when he lost Clemson, when he lost to LSU, when he lost to Alabama, when he lost to Georgia in the college football playoffs, yeah, you're not gonna fare too well. So, again, it goes back to Brent Venables and Sonny Dykes. Give him your two, give him your three, and who knows? Maybe a Dallas Cowboys will pick him up, and nobody has to worry about whether or not whether or not he has defense because we're talking about the Dallas Cowboys. I don't know, but I'm not even a
If
Cowboys fan.
USC gets a defense, I think they'll be more tuned to be unstoppable than Tennessee. I think Tennessee's offensive scheme is a little easier to stop than what uh well I just forgot his name now. Lincoln is able to
Hmm.
produce. Heupel's is a little more simplistic. If you know how to stop it, you can stop it pretty effectively. And if they're not hitting shot plays, then they're toast.
Oh,
Uh,
absolutely.
as far as USC and Lincoln Riley goes, I mean, you watched him many years at Oklahoma.
Hmm.
There's multiple ways to skin a pig in Lincoln Riley's offense, and it's it's hard to stop. It's Mike Leach 2.0, but
Yep.
a much more highly effective version.
And Mike and Lincoln's not going to be putting it on. He won't be going for him fourth down like Mike Leach always did.
No,
Um, Rest in peace, that legend. Penn State just broke in. Penn State has won the Rose Bowl 35-21 over Utah. So there you go, Big Ten. Cap off your at least your weekend with a Rose Bowl after you lose both of your semifinals. But
that's okay. They beat a Pac-12 champ that lost to Florida, so
oh man, oh man, oh man. Uh,
who had no business losing to Florida, but that's besides the point.
speaking of um, Florida, looking at first year head coaches, Billy Napier down in Florida. You got Brent at OU, Sonny Dykes at TCU. Even though you really can't at this point have much more success unless they lose and win a national title next year. That's really about where they're at this point. And I'm sure I'm missing quite a bit more coaches throughout the ranks. And um, is there any first year head coach this year that you can think of that you think might have a better second year? Who is some of the coaches, in your opinion, will have a better second year than their first?
Well, I can tell you some coaches who. Well, there's one coach that'll definitely have a better second year, and that's Mario Cristobal down at Miami.
Oh yes.
They had a they had a barnstorm go off on them this year when their offense kind of just fell apart. The receivers lacked experience, were just weak in general. I mean, they had A&M on the ropes and did everything they could to lose that game, and still had A&M on the ropes. Which, granted, A&M's a bad football team, but
Hmm.
$26 million bad football team. But
Well, that's what 26 million bucks in players revenue plus God knows what Jimbo's getting paid under the table and
yeah,
then some. That's
yeah,
yeah 5 stars too.
Charlie Strong, let's go.
Hmm.
But
Yep.
oh, what was I even talking about? Now that I got off, okay, Mario Cristobal. Yeah, recruiting wise, Mario's an assassin. They're gonna get right. They're gonna get the right dudes in there. I don't know if this has changed. This is as of like 2 weeks ago. Uh, when I looked, Miami had 16 out of 24 players in the recruiting class from the state of Florida, and that right there alone will change college football. These Florida kids staying in home and not going to Alabama, Ohio
Hmm.
State, Georgia, uh, Florida, and Florida State and Miami. All at least 50% of the recruiting classes come from the state of Miami this year, or not the state of Miami. Miami's not a state. State of Florida.
I
Uh,
knew what you meant.
but I think Mario Cristobal will do a lot better than he did last year. Uh, a head coach to watch out for second year, Dan Lanning at Oregon.
Yep. That was my
Uh,
guy right there.
he's they exploded on signing day, early signing day. He gets some more on the regular signing day. He's a great defensive mind. Learned under one of the best for a couple of years. He's got a national championship under his belt as a defensive coordinator. A great recruiter, as we can see.
Hmm.
Uh, he got DJ Uyunglele's little brother, the great defensive end coming out of high school, and got DJ on the roster with Bo Nix coming back. That's
Yep.
something to watch for. Uh, they're great. They're getting some great talent coming in from recruiting rankings this year. Maybe they get a couple from the transfer portal to help them out instantly. And who knows? Oregon could be pushing for a Pac-12 title this year if they don't have to play, the national championship team week 1 and get skull dragged. Then they might be okay.
I like Brent, and I really thought Dan Lanning. I thought really was the guy we should have went with. Give something fresh. Understood why OU went Brent because he understands OU culture. He gets blah 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 blah. But man, I'm just gonna say it. I said it sometime last year when when Brent got hired on, but I'm gonna tell you, I think Dan Lanning was a missed hire, but no, I think he'll do perfectly fine at Oregon. He can recruit. I know he lost to one kid that decommitted. I swear to God, he decommitted from Notre Dame. Then a few days later, he committed, and decommitted. Then he committed to Oregon,
Yeah,
and he decommitted to Oregon. Then he committed to Oklahoma, and then a lot of people thought he was going to decommit, but I guess he stuck it out. But anyway, as we wrap, whatever. Um, Dan Lanning, though, I think is going to be a stud in the Pac-12, and who knows? Maybe one year Oregon will move to another conference or something. I don't know.
I can tell you that. Well, I don't think Oregon will leave conferences. I think that Nike tie is going to keep them in the Pac-12. Their head of Nike is big in Pac-12 pockets, so I don't think Oregon's going anywhere. But I do, as far as the missed hire with Dan Lanning and Brent Venables. Dan Lanning himself uh, jumped right into a Cadillac at Oregon. Cristobal had that
Oh,
thing running like a
absolutely.
machine. So I mean, if Brent Venables would have went in there, he'd have probably a little bit better success than Dan Lanning did because I do think a little bit higher of Venables as a defensive coordinator than I do Lanning. Uh, Lanning's probably a little more modern to today, and Venables has got some grit to him. He's been around a while. He knows. I mean, he's seen the best of Alabama. I mean, he knows what. There's nothing that he hasn't seen.
Exactly. As we wrap up the show, there's two last questions we'll get to the NIL and Deion Sanders primetime in Boulder. Um, what's your thoughts on the NIL? I've kind of outspoken it, kind of upset some people, but you kind of, to me, kind of see where I'm coming from. Don't ask me what show it was; I can't remember, but I pretty much came out and said that you know it's cool. If they want to make money, that's fine. But the issue I have with it is that they've already got well, theoretically they got a free ride scholarship. Now whether or not they go their whole 4 years, that's on them. But you got your books, you got your room and board, you got everything already paid. Your education that is costs an arm and a leg, as it is anyway. And obviously, you won't have debt and all this, taking student loans out, so on and so forth. Practically got everything already paid for anyway. And then, of course, they got so on. These people will this, that, and something else. University is using them to benefit them anyway, and they should get some parts of it. The benefit comes back to them, and so on and so forth. Okay, fair enough. The NIL and the transfer portal, it has, in my opinion, starting to. I don't like the transfer portal. I'm not. I don't like. I'm not a huge fan of that at all. Um, I'm still on the fence with the NIL. I don't know. I think it was the first step to the transfer portal, which leads to couldn't necessarily ruin college football. I guess it depends on how you look at it. It could, but what's your thoughts on the NIL and the transfer portal, and then we'll get to prime time as we end up the wrap up the show.
Yeah. Well, I'm about to put you on board with both of them. with how you fix it.
Sweet.
Uh, so transfer portal, NIL, great things, horrible things at the same time. Uh, it's great for players like Quinn Ewers, who are at Ohio State, probably made the wrong decision coming out of high school, not going to see the field for 3 years, and you want to go somewhere where you're going to get seen, get tape, get put something on tape to try to get to the league. And it's terrible for players like Jermaine Burton, who win a championship and say, okay, I can get utilized better at this team, even though I'm already a starter at this team. I'll go transfer here and try to do something I can't do here.
Right.
Uh, and it's also great for G5 kids who didn't have enough exposure coming out of high school, who were just downright studs and dominate at the G5 level. And then, there's tape put on them and they get moved up to the Penn States and the Georgias, the Ohio States. They come up from the Toledos, and it's great for them. And it's also great for the guys who are, on the back burners of these top teams to go down to G5s just to be able to play. Now, how do you fix the craziness of it? Well, you take NIL for what it is and you adjust it a little bit. And instead of you let players do what they want with name, image, and likeness, but revenue sharing and with these huge conference media rights deals, you could pay every single one of these players $20,000 a year. That's plenty enough for these 18-year-old kids.
Mm-hmm.
They're already getting to go to school for free, like you said, and even the walk-ons would get this. They're on the roster. Everybody on the roster, $20,000 a year on a 85-man roster. That is $1.7 million a year. Well, each one of these schools is getting over $100 billion. So, $1.7 million is not going to hurt anybody's pockets.
Oh no.
So, and now to use that to combat the transfer portal, you tier it. So you say freshman year you make 15,000. You stay with us your sophomore year, you make 20,000. You stay with us your junior year, you make 30,000. You stay with us your senior year, you make 40,000. And you tier it, and every year that you stay, you make more money. You hit that portal, you restart back at tier 1 at whatever school you go to. And the only way you could govern that would be the conferences would have to do it because the NCAA can't do it. They would be going back on everything they've already done. So
Mm-hmm.
NCAA needs to just go ahead and step out of the way because they're essentially useless at this point.
Absolutely.
Uh, and just let conferences govern it. And if conferences govern it, regulate it, make everybody paid the same, you won't have issues like Tennessee defense giving up on their offense and losing or giving up 63 to Spencer Rattler. Because you're not going to convince me that there's a competent college football team in the country giving up 63 to that kid. You ought to know. You're an Oklahoma fan. You watched him.
Oh yeah. Yep. Good
I'm
old
sure you were in the
Spencer.
crowds booing his ass off the field too.
Yep, I was there at West Virginia game when they were yelling, "We want Caleb."
Yep.
Oh yeah, that was ugly. Good old Spencer. And last but not least, I think the most entertaining news so far during Colorado's off season. I wouldn't say the off season per se of college football, but prime time in Boulder. Of course, Deion leaves Jackson State from the SWAC and goes to the Colorado Buffaloes in the Pac-12 as their new head coach, and of course brought his son with him and a few other players from Jackson State, and he's transfer portals treated him well and so on and so forth. All right, your thoughts? What's your kind of not really prediction, but what do you see Dion doing in Colorado, and can he revive this dead Buffalo in their football program?
Oh, well, I'm going to do something I did last year. I called out Tennessee. I said Tennessee was going to go either 11-1 or 10-2. Now, granted, I thought they'd beat Alabama and go 11-1. I didn't see South Carolina coming. I don't think anybody in the world saw South Carolina coming. But I liked them to beat Alabama as soon as they lost to Alabama last year. Uh, and like I said, I'm not a Tennessee fan. There's nothing I want to see more than them go winless in the SEC again. But just gotta call it like you see it. And
Exactly.
Alabama struggles on the road. They had Tennessee at Tennessee. There was no shot that game wasn't going to be at 7 o'clock, and it, it was going to be an insane environment. So I liked Alabama there. For Colorado, give Deion. Don't count this year against him, just like Brent Venables, because he's going to do what he can, and this roster is going to be 10 times better than what it was. But what it was worse than a dumpster fire. So I don't know how long. I want to say 3 years. You give him 3 years, and he'll be in a Pac-12 championship game. They're, he's just going to get that much talent there just because of who he is. He doesn't even have to be that good of an actual recruiter. People are going to come to Colorado. There's going to be people take visits to Colorado just to meet Deion Sanders, and just
Hmm.
Deion being who he is going to land them. And that's all there is to it. I mean, he's going to get some guys they got no business getting, and they're going to win some games because of it.
I like Dion. I ain't gonna lie, I wasn't a huge fan of his growing up watching him. I just wasn't. Great human being though, from what we see on camera. I don't know, obviously behind closed doors, and that's not my business. So to each its own. But you look at the schedule next year. I feel bad for him. Of course, the road games are tough. TCU on the road, Arizona State.
Yeah, opening with
Yeah,
TCU, that's brutal.
yeah,
I mean,
that's it.
brutal.
Regardless against a national semifinal or national runner-up or national champion, doesn't matter. That's gonna be a tough one to open up against in that environment. Arizona State a few weeks later on the road. Then the
Yeah, that's
stretch
going to be
and
nothing to scoff at either.
toward.
Arizona State came on their own at the end. They got a decent quarterback in there.
And on the road, what Oregon, UCLA, Utah, and Washington State. That's gonna be tough. I can see some wins, and I don't think they'll be as bad as they were this year. I see some wins in there. Nebraska's, you don't know because Nebraska's trying to figure out their identity at this point. Colorado State's, winnable, but I see some wins. It's gonna be a tough stretch. I say, well, they win one game this year. I say if he does four, I think that's an improvement. I mean, obviously, it's better than one. I think four. I think I could see him 4 or 5. Five probably be really pushing it. But I'm with you. I think and I'm gonna go out and say this. I think in 24 hours, I don't know the schedule, nor 25. It's too early for that still. 24 and 25, I expect to see Colorado playing. I think 24, you really start to see a whole lot more improvement than you did in 23, and obviously a whole lot more than you did in 22. I think 25. I'm with you on that one. I think 2025 is when really Colorado we should be seeing them play for a Pac-12 championship, and I can't speak for national championships because I mean that program's so dead. You got to literally you're rebuilding a program from literally who's your custodian to your
Well,
very top. I mean,
just being in the Pac-12, you're already
yeah.
on the outside looking in. They've only been in the playoffs twice
Hmm.
total. So whether it doesn't matter how good he is, they're already on the outside looking in, only getting there twice as a conference.
It's gonna be tough. I mean, I think Dion will do it. Give him some time. I say 2025. I think you can probably talk Pac-12 championship appearances 26, 27. Depends on how everything goes. And who knows? He may not even be there by then. I don't know.
That's what I was just
Um,
about to say. That's all I was
yeah.
saying. He's still there by then. Because if he does something crazy in these first 2 years, there's no guarantees he's not at Auburn or somewhere where just craziness has been going on for a while. Now, I think Hugh Freeze will do pretty good at Auburn. Honestly,
Hmm.
he's got no choice but to do pretty good at Auburn. He definitely can't have anything going on extracurricular
Yeah, he's gotta redeem himself. Really, he did find at Liberty, but
for the most part.
yeah, he was. Yeah, he did decent, but yeah, I'm with you. He's gonna have to. He's gonna be on iWatch literally, um, from the very beginning because
I believe part of his contract was the university had to have access to all of his social media accounts and control over. So
hey, and you
Mississippi
never
might need to think about that for Lane Kiffin, but
well
he posts some crazy stuff sometimes.
Lane Kiffin. I think I follow him. If I don't, I just watch. I think I do follow him. I just like reading his tweets. His tweets are just so random, but some of them are just.
His tweets are about like a Mike Leach press conference. They're about one and the same. I mean, on the one
Oh,
hand,
Mike Leach.
you got reporters getting called out for false uh
Mm-hmm.
false coaching hirings, and on the other, you got a head coach saying his players he's worried about the future of the boys in Mississippi having T-Rex arms because they're not utilizing their hands, and you just never know what you're gonna get.
and and you never know. Lane Kiffin, Lane. Um, Deion. That's what I was going with. You never know. Florida State may keep going well, and I can't think of his name now. Who's down there?
Mike Norvell.
Thank you. Yes, I should know
I
this.
don't
We
I don't think they're gonna get rid of Mike Norvell. I think Dion would be the only person that would get rid of anybody for. But Norvell's been doing great things there these last 2 years. They finally look like a program revived, and they got some key transfer uh, incoming players. And their receiver Johnny Wilson is a stud. I mean,
hmm
he's just huge. He's hard to get down. He's hard to cover. He's fast. And Jordan Travis is. I mean, from the from the day he stepped foot on the field against Alabama, starting first game freshman year, and just took shot after shot after shot, and just kept getting back up and slinging the rock, standing in there taking hits, throwing the ball. I've had a lot of respect for him ever since then, and he's gotten a lot better, and they're playing really good football, and they're gonna be a scary team next year in the ACC.
don't be surprised if they're not winning it all next year.
I wouldn't be. I thought. I mean, they had a chance to this year. If
hmm Alrighty, guys. That's all. First episode 2023. The good and wonderful Jo Patt. Um, listen to listen to his podcast, Jo Patt on the bets. Hope that's right. 'Cause I didn't even look at my phone.
Yep, Jo
Um,
Patt on the bets.
Jo Patt on the bets. If you're interested in, if you gamble or if you're interested, hey, follow him, and I'm sure he'll answer any question you have on it. Please don't come to me. I'm going to make you broke as a joke. There is no guarantee that anything will happen on that end. But no, give Jo Patt on the bets a listen on all their major podcast platforms, and of course a follow on Twitter. I'll let you handle that one. Where can they find you on Twitter and all that good stuff again?
Yeah, Twitter, same as the show name, Jo Patt on the bets. Got a Patreon, Jo Patt on the bets. Working on adding our Discord channel to the Patreon, where we just give out bets for everything, not just college football. Multiple multiple models over here with all kinds of data science and word soup that makes no sense to the common person, but it's when it's deciphered and put into a group chat, then a lot of people can make money. But so that's always fun. We've got our sponsor, Pet Nurture Plus. Get all your dog cat needs there. Uh, find us on Twitter, Joe Pat on the Bets, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Podbean, all of them. Joe Pat on the Bets everywhere but Twitter. Or I'm sorry, YouTube, all over Twitter.
YouTube guys, not on YouTube yet. Keep on going on Twitter. Follow them. But no, it's an honor, of course, having you on. Definitely a lot of fun picking your head college football and just talking college football as we wrap up what seemed to be a very quick college football season, in my opinion, but
They
it
get
was
faster every year. They get more games,
man.
but they get faster. It don't make any sense.
Exactly. No, it don't make sense, but no, nonetheless, I appreciate you have coming on, taking time out of your busy schedule, and talking some college football tonight.
No problem. Anytime. Be happy to come on again anytime.
Hey, absolutely. I'll keep that in mind because trust me, you'll be on here multiple times, even during the off season. But that's all we have for the first episode of 2023. Find us on find the show on find the show on don't find the show on Facebook. We got banned. Find the show on True Story. Don't say Merry Christmas. Find the store podcast on Twitter at Air Raid Podcast. I changed it during this transition from 22 to 23 at Air Raid Podcast, my personal one on there with Mike MIKE, all major podcast platforms. And a reminder, check out Manscaped. Use the code BellyUpFantasy 20% off on your order, as we are partnered up with the Belly Up Podcast Network. Joe, true story. Don't say Merry Christmas on Facebook. Just so you
That's
know,
crazy. I need to get me a Manscaped code.
do it, dude.
Yeah, they're a great company.
100% they are. I may still get one just from my personal, like, hey, use a code Air Raid. No, I don't know if I can do that. I don't know. Probably not. If I'm no, I probably shouldn't. I don't know. We'll figure that out. But yeah, definitely don't say, don't say Merry Christmas though, for real.
Hey, that's
On
insane.
Facebook anyway. On Facebook.
That's wild.
Yeah. Oh well. Good stuff. All right, Joe. Have yourself a wonderful rest of your week and enjoy the national title game and wish your dogs all the best.
Thanks, man. You too. See you next time.
Take care. You've been listening to the Air Attack Podcast. We will be back next week, same time, same place. New episodes released every Thursday. So make sure you set your notifications ready. Have a good one.